Derek Moneyberg here. Our community is coming together live on April 1st to discuss one thing: who goes broke and who gets rich in the stock market during times of crisis and uncertainty. I know that's April Fool's Day, so don't be a fool. There's tons of turmoil in the market right now, and the moves you make in these next few months are going to echo inside your portfolio for decades, for the rest of your life, for the eternity of your family for that matter. Join our group live on the call, and you will learn how to spot current market opportunities and how to avoid the painful pitfalls that many are going to suffer and struggle from because they never seen it coming. Bring your intelligent questions, and I'll see you live on April 1st, starting 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. Click that link. I'll see you live.
Yeah, I was 42 when I started playing with this MMA stuff. I was 42 years old, and that's ancient. You know, that's grandfatherly to start learning fighting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just got my ass kicked, and I just say it because it's what it is. It's like for the first year, I just got beat up, and it was kind of humiliating, you know. And you know, the thing that stopped me from really feeling humiliated is I was getting beat up by many of the best people in the world. So that was like a coping strategy, yep. Because if a random 140-pound girl was, you know, making me tap to a shoulder lock, that would be humiliating. But I felt better because it was like Michelle Watterson or Claudia Gildeja or something like this, you know. In my first year, I'd have to tap to girls on occasion, smaller men. And I just got beat up by smaller people badly for a year. And then the second year, then I got beat up in more sophisticated ways, that I had basic defense. And then I just got beat up in more sophisticated ways. Okay. It's true. And, you know, and those first 2 years, now by year 3, I started getting pretty good at some things. And I'm a little over 4 years of training now. And I feel very competent. I feel very good. I feel very good. I don't need to say much more than that. But I do really great against a lot of guys. And there's another unique thing where people kept saying on the internet, like, show the footage. Well, first of all, I did show training clips for the whole time.
Sure.
For 3 years and 7 months. It was on my Instagram. It's on YouTube. And you know what the internet did? They took clips where I was training for 3 months. I had 3 months of training, and then they presented that as if it was last week's fucking training, you know?
Of course.
Like, this is the guy's skill set. No, that was my skill set 3.5 years ago. And I'm in the room with Royce Gracie and Gordon Ryan, and Royce is asking me to do this foot lock where we go from omoplata, and he rolls through, and I have to catch his leg and get my arm and grab his foot and pull his foot in and bend his foot back. And it's literally my first rep ever doing that, and we catch it on camera. And they published that, and it's a little awkward. It's my first rep that I ever did that. And I'm in the room with Gordon and Royce, and Royce has given me an instruction, hey, do this. Am I going to argue with him? I'm a white belt. I'm going to argue with Royce about what no, I'm just going to do whatever the he tells me to do.
Bro, the reason I'm laughing is I saw that video. I did not know that was... I didn't know that you just said, well, your hair was kind of the same, and your body looked kind of the same. I didn't know that, but I know that exact move that you're talking about. Big Nogueira made that famous in Pride. None of us had ever seen it. We never even heard the word omoplata. He rolls for this omoplata, then it's like a shoulder lock, and then he catches the guy's foot. And it was this huge deal when it went around the internet. And
it's my first rep that I ever did, and I remembered that, and I didn't even say it to anybody else. But then Gordon came over, and he's like, that was the first rep you ever did. And I was like, I remember. But I didn't want to say it to him because I wouldn't think that he would remember, you know? He's like, Royce was asking you to do this thing. It's the first time you ever did it. And the internet wants to mock you for your first... You're in the room with me and Royce Gracie. You know, Gordon Ryan and Royce Gracie is my first rep ever doing that. And they want to talk about it like it was like last week's training. And, you know, I'm just a total fraud, you know? I'm like, all right. And anyway, crazy life, you know. But back to the main thought is like, I just accepted that like if you're trying something new and you want to get good at it, you're going to have to eat a certain pile of, you know. And you could do that in small chunks for the next 10 years and never really be good at it, or you could just try to get through the mound, get through all the worst parts as fast as possible, and then you can start being pretty good at something.
Will you tell me, what was that like to train with Hoist, by the way? That's always
He's
been
amazing.
like a...
He's over all the time.
Okay.
He'll be back in February.
Yeah,
He comes over every 3-4 months.
And when Hoist and Gordon are in the room together, who is the alpha male?
That's not
I know who's better, but does...
You know what?
It's not the same question.
No, I'll tell you. Well, first of all, they met through me. I introduced them. They met at my place.
Okay.
So the first time they ever met was with me, and which was a flattering thing. And we were training together, which is kind of an amazing thing to be in the room with those two guys. Like people here that maybe don't follow that sport or they're less interested is like, but I think you would be interested to be in the room with those two guys. And you know what? They had the low flow role and playing around together. And you know what? Neither one of them would tap the other one.
No.
Neither one of them would tap the other one.
Yeah.
Gordon's like, I'm not going to tap Hoist Gracie.
I heard that.
And then Hoist is saying like, I'd give him my arm and he wouldn't take it. And then he'd give me his arm and I'm not, he's like, I'm not going to tap Gordon Ryan. I can't tap Gordon Ryan. I'm not going to pretend that I can and take his arm and go for the submission. So it was the most boring, gentlemanly, swan, it might as well have been like a ballet. It was very, very gentlemanly and graceful and polite. It was nothing tough.
I've got to work out with so many people. The first person I ever saw, first human that I ever saw that there was like this glow around was Hoist Gracie. He was in Costa Rica doing a fight, and he was a commentator. And I remember coming in, and there was Hoist, the guy that first UFC fight I ever saw, and the first UFC champion I ever saw, and the second UFC champion, the third UFC champion, and it was just a really incredible thing. I've never been on the mat with him, but I remember when he and Gordon were working out. There's another guy, Derek. By the way, Gordon gets a ton of credit. You guys know the name Craig Jones? Mixed personality, but you guys know the name Craig Jones. Two biggest names maybe in jiu-jitsu, but there's a third guy, and this third guy deserves equal credit. His name's Gary Tonin. And Gary left the sport of jiu-jitsu for MMA right as the sport of jiu-jitsu kind of started to get exposure. UFC's covered it now, and Dana's got this thing on Fight Pass, and you got CGI, and Abu Dhabi's grown. But when I think of like the Mount Rushmore of jiu-jitsu, you of course put Hoist. You put Hoist on the Mount Rushmore of anything combat related. But I would put Craig, Gordon, and there's a guy named Gary Tonin. I think he deserves equal credit, believe it or not. I don't think he's the third man. I think he deserves equal credit to those guys. That's my own opinion. I worked down with him. Have you ever rolled with Gary Tonin?
I've done interviews with them.
Okay.
I've spent time with them. I've never rolled with them. I like the guy. He's a very nice guy.
Yes. I got a roll with him and Gordon. And Gordon was this up-and-comer. He was this guy, and he was wearing this crown, and he was calling himself the king, and he was 21 years old, and he was just this up-and-comer. But Gordon, like anybody, had a mentor. He had somebody that he listened to, somebody that he would ask advice of, and that somebody was Gary Tonin. Gary looked after Gordon for a period of time, and that's the same way that Gordon would tell the story. Anyway, I got involved in this three-man group. We're doing this three-man rotation, and it was very much what you described with Hoist, where Gordon, this 21-year-old, would get to positions and let you go. But I could just feel the threat. I could feel the danger. And there's not a lot of times you could say that about jiu-jitsu. They call it the gentle art, but there was a danger going with Gordon and Gary Tonin, both.
When you move around with Gordon, he's like, he's not in a hurry to do anything. He kind of lets you trap yourself. He just, whatever you do, he's going to foreclose your options to do some different things. And then you respond in a new way, and you lose a couple more opportunities. And then you respond in another way, and you lose another opportunity or two. And then you're just in a dilemma of like, all right, do I want to get, I can either have an arm bar or a Kimura right now. What would I prefer to tap to? I can defend the arm bar and get a Kimura, or and that's where or there's a different similar dilemma could put you in where you're, all right, would you like to be choked in a leg triangle or the Kimura? Yep. And you even when you stop and think about it and do it again and do it again, and you end up in the same position, And if he decides he wants something else, he'll put you in a different position, and that's where you're going to be. And there's nothing you can do.
Can I throw
about
one
it.
thing in about Gordon? It's hard to know who the best in the world is. Like you think about Tom Brady. He was great, but what if they changed the rules? What if they changed the rules to football? There was, 3 different ways to contest a Super Bowl. It's going to be 2 quarters in this league. It's going to be 4 quarters over here. Or what if looking at LeBron and Kobe and Jordan, what if a basket was worth 4 points? And I'm just saying, like, what would that do to the stats? It would probably change all of history. Everything that Gordon has done has been under different rule sets. One negative to jiu-jitsu, in my opinion, is that they don't have a unified rule set. Everybody that starts an organization comes up with their own rules. This guy was the king of all of them. He was the king of Polaris, of Submission Underground. He'd be the king of Fight Pass when he gets over. He's the king of Abu Dhabi. It's a really interesting thing that whatever the rules, this dude can play better than anybody else. That's a very rare thing, in my opinion. Is that a fair compliment?
I can't say enough about the guy. You know what we're not saying is, on top of all these other things, he's by far the best grappler ever. He's also a very loyal friend. He's really gone out of his way to be a great friend to me, unsolicited.
Sure.
Unsolicited. I asked him to come train with me for a few days. He'll come. The first time I asked him to come train with me, we didn't talk about money. I just asked him to come train with me for a few days. He comes. And I said, what would you, maybe the 3rd night or something, I bring my checkbook and I ask him, what do you want to work out? What's fair for your time and effort here that you'd be happy to come back? And he said, you don't have to give me any money. And I said, get the f*** out of here. And I was like, you're the best guy in the world. And I'm like, I appreciate that. That's very thoughtful. But you're the best guy in the world doing this. And literally, you can help me solve problems that nobody else in the world can help me solve. So that's not what's going to happen. And then, I ask him again, what do you think is? He's like, really, you don't have to pay me anything. And that was expensive for him to say that to me.
Yes,
that was expensive for me to.
Yes.
And he's either an elite master negotiator in a way that I didn't know. And I don't think that was the point. But that was an expensive way for him to communicate with me.
But that's a rare mindset that you have. That really is a rare mindset. I'll use my example on Palantir earlier. I didn't think to give him a percentage. Didn't even cross my mind. I came and bragged to him that I made money off this information that he gave me. But most people are like that. And then, but if I could help you, I'll teach you options. That's how I'm going to pay him back, right? I'm going to hand it to somebody else if I can. That's my way of thinking my coach. That's generally a mindset, and Gordon has that. John Danaher and these guys that helped him, he didn't get out a checkbook, so he was passing it back. And you're the one that came in and go, no, your time is worth something. You had a very similar mindset on your own to what Ricardo Almeida taught me in Japan on that subway. We said, man, these are experiences, and you're having to go through it, and you're having to learn the hard way. The correct way to do this is that you're going to come and hand me, and that's got a value. But that's a rare mindset that you have. I think it's
I just want to tell you that you're wrong, and that guy.
All right.
And I don't need any money, but I do need you to put on the schedule that you're coming to Chicago to come train.
All right. I want to come to Chicago. I appreciate that invite.
You, Neil, for your options. But I do need you to come to Chicago and come train with me. We can talk about some more finance while you're there.
Is your name really Neil? Yeah. That's badass. That's badass that he knows that. And by the way, if you ask me about options, I will teach you.
I'd like to reiterate that guy.
Yeah. To his point, if you can't get Warren Buffett, then you're right. If you can't, I'll tell you what I can, Neil.
Derek Moneyberg here. Our community is coming together live on April 1st to discuss one thing: who goes broke and who gets rich in the stock market during times of crisis and uncertainty. I know that's April Fool's Day, so don't be a fool. There's tons of turmoil in the market right now, and the moves you make in these next few months are going to echo inside your portfolio for decades, for the rest of your life, for the eternity of your family, for that matter. Join our group live on the call, and you will learn how to spot current market opportunities and how to avoid the painful pitfalls that many are going to suffer and struggle from because they never seen it coming. Bring your intelligent questions, and I'll see you live on April 1st, starting 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. Click that link. I'll see you live.